Happy last day of April, everybody. Today is Tuesday, April 30th. Hunter here again at Weather on the Go, and in today's weather forecast, we're going to be looking at 2 days of enhanced risk severe weather, mainly across the plains, but also into the Midwest. We'll be breaking down the severe weather setups for today and tomorrow, as well as the risks those storms will bring, and we're going to be looking at the timing of those storms as they move through, and we're going to also be looking at early May as it looks very active, severe weather returning as well. It is peak severe weather season. We'll be breaking down all of the weather that you need to know in today's weather forecast. So if you are new here to Weather on the Go and you're not a subscriber, make sure to hit the subscribe button down below. We'll keep you covered with accurate and detailed weather forecasts throughout this year. Also, be sure to press the like button down below, the thumbs up button. It truly helps out more than you know to get this weather information out to as many people as possible. So let's look at the weather alerts out the door this morning. We have dense fog advisories up and down the Mississippi Valley here, all the way up into Illinois, Missouri there into western Kentucky, all the way down here through Oklahoma, Arkansas, East Texas, Louisiana, and Mississippi. A lot of states affected here by these dense fog advisories this morning. We've had a lot of moisture recently with the rains, and you can see dense fog early this morning down to under a quarter mile across the lower and middle Mississippi Valley region. As we go through late this morning, the fog will begin to burn off across this region. Still some patchy dense fog at times, but we're definitely seeing it burn off. And then as we go into the afternoon hours, we're going to see that fog completely burn off across the lower and middle Mississippi Valley region. Now, looking at the synoptics for today here, you can see a trough across the Pacific Northwest and a ridge downstream across the eastern and southeastern United States. And that's going to set up a battleground of warmer air to the east and cooler air to the west here in that battleground, setting up across the Central Plains on up into the Midwest today. And as we go into Wednesday, again, the trough out west, bringing cooler temperatures, ridge out east, bringing warmer temperatures. That battleground between the cooler and warmer air will again set up across the plains and into the Midwest. So we do have an enhanced risk for severe storms today across portions of central and southwestern Iowa, getting into northwestern Missouri, extreme southeastern Nebraska, and northeastern Kansas, where we could be seeing some significant severe weather. The biggest threat today is going to be those very large hailstones, 2 inches or larger in diameter. And if you don't know how large that is hen egg size at least or larger. So definitely seeing that. And this is an enhanced risk driven by hail across portions of Iowa, Missouri, Kansas, and Nebraska. We also could be seeing those hurricane force wind gusts, at least isolated instances of that around the Des Moines area, back into Omaha, up towards Sioux City and Sioux Falls, and then stretching down toward Kansas City as we go through the day. And a few tornadoes will be possible. I do not expect it to be as widespread and dangerous of a severe weather day with tornadoes today as we saw a few days ago, but I do think a few tornadoes will be possible here across the Des Moines metro area, back toward Omaha, Sioux Falls, and Sioux City, stretching down there towards the Topeka region, Kansas City, and perhaps Wichita going through the day. Let's look at the triple point for severe weather, because this is very important. A lot of our severe weather events this season have been driven by this. It has to do with a low pressure system developing. You have the warm front lifting north, and then you have either the dry line or the cold front, and that where that area, all those three things meet, the low pressure, the warm front, the dry line or cold front meet all together, is called the triple point. And that's the area where you have enhanced wind shear in the low levels, and that could really create an environment ripe for tornado development. So let's look at that here as we go through today. Here are your dew point temperatures. Notice the triple point up here into eastern Nebraska, into western Iowa today. Those dew points are into the upper 50s and the lower 60s. That is contributing to moderate instability values up around 1,000 to 2,000 joules per kilogram in that environment near the triple point. Further south into the Kansas region and Oklahoma, those instability values climb to strong into the 3,000 joules per kilogram range. And notice the low-level jet here in the 850 millibar layer across western Iowa today, screaming in around 40 knots this afternoon near the triple point. That's where those values will be maximizing there in western but also northwestern Iowa, up to a max of 7 on the significant tornado parameter space today. As we go into the evening, look at the low-level jets start to increase, become a little bit more widespread and robust as well. And that means our significant tornado parameter values will begin to become more widespread and robust. Notice here in northwestern Missouri, around portions of the Kansas City metro, those areas are peaking up to near 13s today. So keeping an eye on that. So let's look at the timing here for this morning. A couple isolated thunderstorms near the warm front cannot be ruled out. These would mainly be producing some hail if they did become severe. As we go into the afternoon, we're watching near the triple point up here where the low pressure system, the warm front, and dry line cold front combination are meeting up. That's where the enhanced lift will be. That's where the enhanced low level wind shear will be. So supercell thunderstorms will fire up here north of Omaha toward the Sioux Falls, Sioux City area this afternoon. Those will have a tendency to drop southeastward in a couple of areas across portions of southeastern Iowa, mainly producing damaging winds and hail, but a few tornadoes here. And then this evening, we have more of an MCS trying to develop across the Kansas City metro. That will have a tendency to drop southward into the better instability as we go through Kansas, into western Missouri, and eventually entering into Oklahoma through the evening hours. And then as we go into early Wednesday morning, look at the outflow-driven storms down toward the Tulsa region. Could be seeing some damaging winds perhaps into the very early morning hours before sunrise on Wednesday. Definitely keeping a close eye on that. Now going into Wednesday, another enhanced risk of severe weather, mainly centered across central Kansas, around the Salina region, back toward Wichita there, and Dodge City. We'll keep a close eye on that. Also into far northwestern Oklahoma, slight risk down the dry line there into West Texas. Looking at the biggest threat here again, very large hail. We have a very strong drought ongoing here in New Mexico. So when you see wind flow over top of that, we're just going to see a lot of dry air aloft. Dry air aloft leads to more significant hail, so that will be the biggest threat tomorrow, another enhanced risk driven by hail. We also have a little bit of a threat here of some hurricane force wind gusts across southern portions of Nebraska into northern Kansas. Those could be up over 70 miles per hour, and a few tornadoes, much like we see today across portions of Iowa and Nebraska. That will be further south into central Kansas, western Oklahoma, and west Texas through the day on Wednesday. Here's the setup. Triple point again up here near Kansas. We got to watch that. Dew points advecting north from the Gulf of Mexico into the lower and middle 60s, watching that sharp dry line back here as well into western Oklahoma and west Texas. A lot stronger of instability Wednesday afternoon and evening, up over 3,000 joules per kilogram. That's pretty strong here for this time of year in Kansas. You can see the low-level jet Wednesday afternoon already energized, closing in on 50 knots. That will contribute to those significant tornado parameter values, peaking around 7s or 8s tomorrow afternoon there in central and eastern Kansas. Notice it strengthens and it becomes more widespread nocturnally as we get deeper into Wednesday evening. That means those significant tornado parameter values will become worse as we get deeper into the evening, as that low-level jet starts to crank up over 13s here on the values. So let's look at the timing. Warm front trying to lift back north as we go into Wednesday. Again, hail would be the primary mode of severe weather Wednesday morning if we did see any instances of severe weather. Going into Wednesday afternoon, we're kind of watching the dry line here and near the triple point where that low pressure system, the warm front, and the cold front meet up here to the west. Really kind of keeping an eye on that for supercells. Thunderstorms really get underway, and we erode the cap by Wednesday evening. And look at these intense supercells from Kansas back down through western Oklahoma, the eastern Texas panhandle, perhaps even west Texas. These would be producing very large hail, over 2 inches in diameter, some hurricane force winds at times, and especially the chance for tornadoes. And then we'll see upscale growth here into bigger lines of storms as we go deeper into Wednesday evening and Wednesday night. So going into the sunrise time frame on Thursday, a lot of heavy rain and thunderstorm activity elevated to the north in Iowa, but maybe some severe weather further south toward the Dallas-Fort Worth area that we'll keep an eye on. Now going into late this week on Thursday, heavy rain will continue in a swath from the Midwest down here into the southern plains. That will shift east with a diffuse cold front as we go into Friday here across the western Ohio Valley, the Tennessee Valley, down into the deep south. Very heavy rainfall there. The low pressure system all the way up into southern Canada and western Ontario. Here is the rainfall amounts going through Saturday morning on the 4th of May. And you can see very heavy swaths of rain from the upper Midwest down into the Missouri Valley here and the southern plains. And kind of zooming it in and show you these amounts, we could see 1 to 3 inches worth of rain up here from Minnesota, parts of Wisconsin, down through much of Iowa here. I know we have a lot of drought ongoing in Iowa. We could use the rainfall down into Missouri, Kansas, Nebraska, down here into Oklahoma, and especially eastern and Texas into Louisiana there from around the Dallas area to Tyler and Paris, Texas, eastward to Shreveport. There could be a swath of up to 6 inches of rain there through Saturday morning, keeping a close eye on that. And the areas most impacted by the flash flooding threat will be Wednesday, Thursday across the Midwest up here in Iowa into Nebraska and Missouri, but also stretching down through Kansas, Oklahoma, and North Texas. As we go into Thursday, Friday timeframe, the 2nd and 3rd of May, notice how that becomes more widespread along the Mississippi Valley there and just to the west. So we're keeping a close eye on that from Wisconsin all the way down here to Texas and Louisiana. And speaking of the weekend now, we are going to look at that as this is the first weekend of the month of May coming up. And you can see above normal temperature anomalies across most of the U.S., well below normal though across the Pacific Northwest. And I'll show you why in just a moment. But look at the high temperatures this weekend across the eastern 2/3 of the country. Very nice spring-like temperatures, 60s and 70s to go around, more widespread warmth as we go into Sunday there. Let's look at the precipitation. We have some showers and storms in a couple areas across the eastern seaboard there on Saturday, maybe some showers and storms down toward the southern U.S. there at times on Saturday as well, more isolated to scattered activity. And then further to the west, Seattle into the Washington State area, into Portland there, into Oregon, and then down into Northern California, perhaps even northwestern Nevada. We're going to have some pretty heavy precipitation on Saturday. That precipitation will actually turn over to heavier snow, especially for those higher elevations. That's why we do have those well below normal temperature anomalies, because of the snowfall across these regions. So here are the rainfall amounts that you'll be seeing as we go through the weekend here. Heavier rains across the southern plains from Texas, Oklahoma eastward through the Arklatex, and then into the eastern U.S. here from the Delmarva region down through Virginia there and into portions of the Carolinas and Georgia. Heavier swaths of precip there. The precipitation across the Pacific Northwest will mainly be in the form of heavier snows, and we could be piling this up as well across the Cascades here in Washington State and Oregon, down through the northern Sierras in California, but also parts of the Rockies here into the Idaho region, western Montana down into Wyoming and Colorado. Several inches, possibly even over a foot or two of snow in some of the highest elevations out here, keeping a close eye on that. Now going into early next week here, synoptically, this is a pattern that we're going to be in into early May that actually looks reminiscent, very active severe weather pattern. You can see we have a little bit of a ridge across the east, kind of squashed here because we have that trough across the north and northwest. But watch as we go towards later next week. This is the hallmarks of what looks to be a significant severe weather stretch again for the middle of the country, because you have a big ridge of high pressure out east, a big bowling ball type trough out west, and eventually that's going to eject across the middle of the country. And when that does, we could be seeing significant rounds of severe weather. Because look at the temperatures. Early next week, we have warmth starting to build near the Gulf Coast here. And later next week, that warmth tries to spread further north, especially east of the Rockies here. The eastern 2/3 of the country will start to feel more like June and July rather than May in some areas. And looking at the jet stream orientation next week as well, you have that big bowling ball type trough out west, very energized jet stream across the middle of the country through the plains, the upper Midwest, and through the Great Lakes region. And what is worrisome here, again, this is several days out. This could change, so I do want to note that. But looking at the European forecast model here and looking at the surface-based CAPE, your convective available potential energy, early next week, really seeing those purples, even whites showing up there into the southern plains, that's 3,000 plus joules per kilogram instability. That is at least strong instability. And then as we go into later next week, look at these values, almost off the charts. Now again, this could change. This is still several days out, but there is a pattern starting to set up where we have that ridge in the east, we're building up the instability here, and then we have a trough in the west, and over top of that instability on the northern axis here, That's where we have to watch. Remember, for high pressure systems and derechos, we got to start talking derecho season as we're getting closer now. High pressure system, much like we're going to see in the east as we go into next week, you have the airflow around the high pressure system as clockwise. So what a derecho is an intense organized thunderstorm complex that moves quickly over a large area, and it usually produces widespread wind damage and even sometimes some hurricane force wind gusts as well. The criteria for a derecho is severe winds of at least 58 miles per hour, but several instances of those hurricane force winds of 75 miles per hour or greater, and it moves over an area of at least 250 miles. And I do want to note as well, derechos can produce tornadoes, so that is something to keep an eye on as well. Looking at derecho frequency by month, you can see as we're turning into May here, from April we're at 9% frequency, but we really jump up as we go into May to 22%, and May is actually the leading month for derecho frequency in the contiguous United States. And you can see derecho climatology here. The most favored area is the tri-state area of northeastern Oklahoma, southwestern Missouri, and northwest Arkansas. They average 4 derechos every 3 years, but a large area here in the darker green or blue shaded color across the Ohio Valley, parts of the Midwest, down into the lower Mississippi Valley and deep south that average 1 derecho every single year. So something to keep an eye on and open mind about as we're entering into derecho season, peak severe weather season, what have you. So definitely keeping a close eye on that. Make sure to subscribe here to Weather on the Go. We'll keep you covered on the weather forecast throughout the year. Also be sure to press the like button, the thumbs up button down below. It helps to get this video out to more and more people, and I definitely appreciate that. Thank you guys all so much for watching, and have a wonderful rest of your Tuesday out there.